Attachment is the root of suffering. Buddha, stay here for a moment, not to change what you feel, but to allow yourself to feel it without running away. There is a kind of tiredness that cannot be seen, an exhaustion that does not come from the body, but from a mind that never rests. From trying to hold together what is already falling apart. From clinging to people, plans, and versions of yourself that no longer exist out of fear of losing control. Much of human pain is not born from what happens, but from how desperately we try to keep things from changing. Buddhism does not call this clinging, love, or responsibility. It calls it suffering, and not to judge you, but to free you. When you begin to let go, not abruptly, not forcefully, but through a gentle surrender, something deep begins to settle. The inner struggle softens. The heart stops pushing against the current. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you are no longer fighting it. Letting go is not losing what you love. It is stopping the harm you cause yourself out of fear of losing it. From this space of silence and clarity emerge 10 Buddhist lessons, not as theories or empty promises, but as clear steps to relieve suffering at its root, 10 teachings to release control, deactivate attachment, and remember how to live without carrying a weight that was never yours. As you move through these lessons with awareness, something essential reveals itself. When you finally let go, life stops unraveling and slowly begins to find its own order. Lesson 1. The illusion of control and why letting go is actually what works. What if that constant effort to keep everything under control is precisely what makes life feel so heavy? We move through our days tense, mentally gripping outcomes, people, and plans, believing that if we hold tightly enough, nothing will break. Yet here lies the paradox. The harder you squeeze sand in your hand, the faster it slips through your fingers. Control offers a sense of safety and predictability, but at its core, it is one of the ego's most persuasive illusions. Either you let go, or life eventually drags you along. Control does not give you freedom. It gives you fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of not being enough if things do not unfold exactly as you imagined. In Buddhism, there is a principle called non-attachment, and it does not mean indifference. It means allowing life to flow without chaining it to your expectations. You do not own this moment. You are only here to experience it. And the more you force it, the more it resists. Look at your own life and notice how much energy you have spent overthinking, trying to manage every detail, clinging to relationships that were already drifting away, worrying about things that have not even happened, and still, none of that brought you peace, only pressure. Now imagine something different. For just one day, you stop interfering. You stop trying to control every small detail. Instead of obsessively planning the perfect day, you breathe, observe, and respond, not react, but respond with calm rather than control. Ask yourself honestly, what do I fear will happen if I let go right now? Most of the time, the answer is not danger, but discomfort. And in Buddhist teachings, discomfort is often the doorway to growth. The job that never came may not have been part of your path. The relationship that ended may have been a chapter, not the destination. Life is always trying to guide you, but we are so busy resisting that we fail to hear it. When you let go, things do not fall apart. They rearrange themselves, not always where you expected, but often where you needed them to be. Because surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. The strength of trusting the flow instead of fighting the current. Practice this. The next time your mind tightens, pause, breathe, and ask whether this is worth the weight you are carrying. Then loosen your grip, allow, trust, and observe what happens when you stop trying to manage every second. A monk once said that peace is not found in a place without noise, problems, or effort, but in the middle of all of it, when the mind remains serene, and that serenity does not come from control, it comes from trust. What if letting go is how you finally find peace? What if the version of yourself you are forcing is not the one you are meant to become? Perhaps surrender is the most powerful move you can make. Remember this: if you want to fly, you must release the ground. If you want to move forward, you must let go of the past that pulls you back. Let go. Allow life to find you. And watch how, without force, everything begins to fall into place. Lesson 2. The paradox of detachment. Because the more you let go, the stronger you become. What if the very thing you cling to most tightly is what is holding you back? We live in a world obsessed with results, chasing goals, seeking validation, measuring worth in numbers and achievements. Yet the harder we pull the string, the more altitude we lose. Because a kite does not rise through force. It rises when it is allowed to loosen. Here lives the paradox of detachment. The moment you stop needing something, you begin to attract it. Letting go is not losing control. It is discovering a deeper, wiser way to relate to life. Detachment does not mean giving up or abandoning. It means being fully present, aware, and unafraid of what comes next. In Buddhist thought, attachment is the root of suffering, not because desire is wrong, but because turning desire into identity enslaves you. Detachment is not apathy. It is freedom, acting from clarity rather than desperation, from truth rather than fear. Look at your own path and see how many times you gave everything to a job opportunity, a relationship, or a dream, and the more you tried to force it, the more it slipped away. Sleepless nights, looping thoughts, plans rewritten again and again, more effort, more tension, and in the end, not peace but pressure, not clarity but confusion, because your power was never in the grip, it was in your presence. Letting go does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. Shifting the question from, will this work, to, is this true for me? And that single question changes everything, because you no longer react from fear. You respond from inner alignment. Practice this. Set your intentions clearly, but release the outcome. Speak with honesty rather than manipulation. Show up in your work, your relationships, and your dreams with sincerity instead of expectation. Then step back, trusting that what is meant for you will reveal itself in its own time. Meditate on impermanence and watch how thoughts and emotions arise and dissolve like waves, remembering that nothing lasts, not even pain. And when you truly understand this, you begin to live more lightly, moving with life instead of against it. Ask yourself honestly whether you are pushing too hard on something that should unfold naturally, because what is forced often breaks, and what is allowed often blooms. Surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom, the understanding that control is an illusion, but presence is power. What has clinging so tightly really given you more peace or more pain, more clarity or more chaos? What if letting go is the shortcut to everything you have been chasing? A seed does not sprout because you yell at it to grow. It blooms when you give it space. Detachment does not disconnect you from life. It places you in a position of real power, power born from authenticity, not anxiety. And here, another quiet teaching appears, how overthinking pushes away what you desire, because you believe you are being productive when you are actually trapped in your mind. Overthinking disguises itself as problem solving. Promises clarity, but delivers confusion, like stirring muddy water until it grows cloudier, while a pond clears only when you stop disturbing it, just like the mind. In silence, everything settles. Yet silence frightens us, because in a culture addicted to doing, stillness feels like failure. So we obsess, rehearse, anticipate, and analyze, convinced that one more thought will bring the answer, but it never does. Because excessive thinking is born not from wisdom, but from fear. Buddhism speaks of the monkey mind, the restless mind that jumps from thought to thought, clinging, doubting, fearing. The mind seeks control through thinking. But true clarity does not arise from noise. It emerges when the noise dissolves. Notice how many answers arrive, not when you think more, but when you pause in the shower, on a walk, in a moment of quiet surrender, because when you create space, wisdom is allowed to surface. We long for peace, yet we try to think our way into it. And that is the trap. Because peace is not something you chase. It is what remains when you stop chasing. Practice this. When your thoughts begin to spiral, do not sink into them. Interrupt the pattern. Close your eyes. Inhale calm. Exhale the story. Because one conscious breath can do more than 100 scattered thoughts. Ask yourself whether you are thinking or avoiding feeling. Because sometimes thinking becomes a shield to avoid deciding, to avoid facing the unknown. Yet life moves forward only when you move, not when you analyze every turn without taking a step. Set boundaries for your thoughts. Give yourself time to decide, and then act without falling into paralysis. Because clarity loves decision, and even a small step breaks the mental loop. Trust simplicity. Trust that quiet intuition you often ignore, because it is not weakness. It is wisdom, and you cannot hear it while the noise of thought is drowning it out. What would happen if you stopped fixing everything and started instead feeling the discomfort, the fear, allowing them to pass like a wave without trying to dominate them with logic? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not from indifference, but from conscious presence. Because when you stop resisting the present moment, it begins to speak to you, and that is where guidance lives. Ask yourself whether your thoughts are helping you or keeping you captive. And remember that your mind is a tool, not your owner. And tools only work when you know when to set them down. So stop stirring the water. Allow the pond to clear. Let silence rise. And you may discover that everything you were searching for has been waiting there all along beneath the noise. Because peace is not outside. It is what remains when you finally let go. Number 4. Why excessive worrying ultimately works against you. Sometimes we protect so much that we end up crushing the very thing we want to care for. Suffocating dreams with perfectionism, relationships with expectations, and our own calm with constant pressure. It looks noble, like deep love. But often, it is just fear in disguise. The fear of losing control, of not being enough, of not being loved unless we constantly prove our worth. Like a flame, love and purpose only grow when they have air. Because true care does not mean clinging desperately. You have probably felt the weight of trying to hold everything together for everyone all the time. Saying yes when you are already exhausted. Trying to regulate other people's emotions. Carrying problems that were never yours. And although it may be mistaken for compassion, it is actually over-responsibility that creates wear instead of connection. In Buddhist teachings, loving kindness is not born from control. It is born from presence, from being with others or with yourself without correcting, forcing, or directing, allowing people to breathe and life to breathe as well. When care is authentic, space is created, and in that space, growth arises. Ask yourself honestly whether you are trying to be everything to everyone, because it is not your mission to be the healer, the pleaser, or the perfect one. Often that is the ego disguised as service. True compassion begins when you allow each person to walk their own path, even when it is messy, even when it does not match what you would choose. Release the need to be understood all the time. Release the attempt to control how others see you. Because when your worth depends on external validation, your care becomes conditional and quietly heavy. And that is not love. It is fear pretending to be love. Redefine care as presence, a company without advising, support without fixing. Allow yourself to rest without guilt, and care for yourself not to be better, but because you are already worthy. Let go of anxious attachment, constant checking, the fear of being forgotten, the excessive thoughts after every conversation, because that is not intuition, it is insecurity. And if you do not look at it with awareness, it will steal your peace. What would happen if you stopped managing everything? If you trusted that others can hold themselves without your constant intervention, and that situations also find their way without your control? You would feel lighter, freer, and paradoxically, your relationships would deepen, because they would be built on trust rather than tension. Not everything is yours to carry. You are allowed to care without controlling, to love without losing yourself, and to give without clinging. Ask yourself whether you are truly caring or simply managing other people's lives with good intentions. This is your invitation to stop trying so hard, because you do not need to be perfect to be loved or to overgive to be valuable. Let the flame breathe. Let your soul breathe and let go. Not because you do not care, but because you now understand what authentic care looks like. And when that happens, peace, clarity, and connection begin to settle naturally. Number 5. What happens when you stop seeking validation? You were not born to be approved. You were born to be authentic. Yet somewhere along the way, applause became oxygen. Likes, praise, and approval began to feel like proof that you were enough. And without noticing, your peace started to depend on other people's opinions. But the truth is simple and profound. A mountain does not need approval to stand. It simply exists. Solid, whole, unmoving. The constant pursuit of validation, though quiet, is exhausting, and it may disguise itself as ambition or motivation. But if your sense of worth collapses when someone disapproves, that is not drive. It is dependence. And dependence distances you from your true power. Because when you live for applause, you become an actor in your own life, constantly wondering if it was enough, if it pleased, if it fit. Validation is a moving target, shifting with trends, moods, and projections. And no stable life can be built on such fragile ground. Buddhism reminds us that freedom is not born from being accepted, but from being real. When you release the need for approval, something sacred happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. You start living in alignment instead of performance. You do things not to be recognized, but because they are true for you. And then the essential question arises: who are you when no one is watching? If no one applauded, if no one noticed, would you still do what you love? Would you still speak your truth? Would you still be present? You are already enough, even in silence. And that is where the shift occurs. Because when you stop externalizing your worth, you also stop living from fear. Fear of failure, judgment, or invisibility, and in that fearless space, creativity flows, courage awakens, and purpose returns. Practice this. Each day, acknowledge yourself honestly, not from ego, but from truth. Name 3 things you did well just for yourself. Maybe you showed up despite fear. Maybe you set a boundary. Maybe you rested without guilt, and let that be enough. The next time someone praises or criticizes you, observe it without clinging. Do not let it define you. Because praise and criticism are like weather. They pass, and your essence does not change because of them. Enter conscious solitude. Not the loneliness of emptiness, but the clarity of aloneness. The space where other people's opinions no longer echo. There waits the real you, the one who knows what to do, who does not need permission to breathe freely. Ask yourself honestly whether you are living for applause or for coherence. Because if you chase applause, you will always feel late. But if you live aligned, even your silence will carry strength. Release the need to be seen, and you will finally see yourself not as a version shaped by others, but as the mountain you have always been. Steady, serene, and complete. And here another profound teaching appears, the whatever happens mindset, and how it transforms everything. You do not need to control everything to be at peace. In fact, the more you try to manage, fix, and force life to match your idea of how it should be, the more chaotic your inner world becomes. Yet there is a quiet, liberating attitude that changes everything. The awareness of whatever happens, not from apathy, but from grounded wisdom. Whatever happens, I remain. This is not giving up. It is anchoring yourself in something deeper than outcomes. Because life is unpredictable. Plans break. People change. Dreams evolve. And the mind wants to panic and demand certainty. But what if peace did not depend on everything going well, but on your ability to remain steady when it does not? Like wind moving around a mountain without shifting it. The mountain does not argue or resist. It simply remains. This awareness is not indifference. It is spiritual trust. The knowing that you can hold life as it is, not only when it is comfortable, staying rooted in your truth even when the ground seems to move. And from there, clarity emerges. Reactions soften. Things feel less personal. And peace becomes more important than pride. Practice conscious neutrality. The next time something triggers you, pause. Observe your reaction without obeying it, and ask whether it needs a response or simply presence. In the midst of chaos, remind yourself that this does not define you, because it does not. Your worth is not measured by how smooth the path is, but by the calm with which you stand when it is not. Use humor as a spiritual tool when something goes wrong. Smile gently and ask whether this will matter in 5 years. Probably not. So do not give it 5 hours of your peace. Because sometimes, peace is not found in answers, but in releasing the need to have them. The real question is whether you can remain serene while everything changes. Because if your peace depends on stability, you will never have it. But if it is born from presence, surrender, and inner steadiness, no storm can uproot you. The whatever happens mindset does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because when you stop needing everything to be a certain way, you begin to live in harmony with life itself. You stop resisting and start flowing. You become the mountain anchored, stable, unmovable, and the next time life turns unexpectedly, breathe and say it quietly, Whatever happens, I remain. That is not weakness. It is mastery. Because letting go is not losing control. It is allowing life to meet you as you are. And when that happens, clarity, strength, and coherence naturally fall into place, reminding yourself at last that you are not your thoughts, you are the calm awareness that observes them. Number 7. You are not your thoughts. Most people spend their entire lives trapped inside a prison with invisible walls, a prison built by their own minds, believing that every inner voice speaks the truth, that every worry, judgment, and fear is real. Yet there is a profound truth few come to see. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that watches them arise and fade, just as clouds move across an open sky, because the sky is never harmed by the storm. It simply makes space and then clears again. Observe the mind. Do not obey it. This simple shift can completely transform your relationship with yourself, because there have been moments in your life, maybe even now, when a single thought could ruin your entire day. One negative comment, one fearful story, and your whole being spiraled. But what if those thoughts were not truths but habits, echoes of old conditioning rather than reflections of present reality? Thoughts arise automatically, and that is not your fault. But identifying with them is where suffering begins. Because you are not the voice that says, "I am not enough." You are the one who hears that voice. And when you stop clinging to it, something extraordinary happens. Freedom. Watch your thoughts as if they were weather. The next time your mind accelerates, do not fight it. Simply notice it, like a bird watching clouds pass, and say silently, "This is just a thought." Then return to the breath, to this moment, to the body, and you will begin to notice how much noise the mind creates just to feel safe. Even though awareness itself needs no safety, it simply is. Still, silent, and whole. Name your patterns. That voice telling you that you are behind in life is not wisdom. It is programming. Ask yourself whether it serves you or whether it is just automatic repetition. Because most thoughts are not useful. They are recycled, born from fear, ego, and the past. They do not deserve your obedience, only your attention. And when you release the need to understand or act on every thought, something softens within you. You stop trying to control every moment. You stop ruling your mind like a dictator. And that is where real change happens. Because clarity is not reached by thinking more. It arises when the mind becomes quiet enough to listen. When you stop chasing thoughts and begin witnessing them, peace becomes possible. This is the heart of mindfulness and Buddhist wisdom. The Buddha did not teach the destruction of the mind, but its understanding, observing its nature like watching a river flow without being swept away. And every time you pause and say, "I am not my thoughts," you reclaim your power and return to the stillness beneath the storm. So ask yourself today which thoughts you have mistaken for truth, and go even deeper. Am I the thinker, or the awareness behind the thought? Because you are the sky vast, open, untouched by the passing weather, and the moment you stop fighting the clouds, everything begins to fall into order. Number 8. Surrender is a simple act. There comes a moment when strength is no longer measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how gently you know how to let go. And that is when everything changes. Because what if surrender were not weakness, but your greatest power? Imagine a boat rowing against a fierce current, no matter how hard it tries. It does not advance and may even sink. But the moment it stops fighting, the river holds it and carries it forward. That is surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is accepting what already is. Because most of us live in resistance, pushing outcomes, clinging to plans, fighting the unknown and calling it ambition, when deep down it is fear. Fear of losing control, fear of appearing weak. But the truth is that control is an illusion, and resistance exhausts the soul. Surrender does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering over what is not in your hands, acting from clarity rather than chaos, moving with life instead of against it. So ask yourself right now where you are forcing something that no longer flows, a relationship, a job, to a dream that has changed shape. Are you rowing in circles out of fear of letting go? Or are you ready to trust the current? Try this. Take a deep breath and say, I don't know, and that's okay. Feel the freedom in that, the space that opens. You do not need all the answers to take the next step. You only need to loosen your grip a little. The most powerful moments of your life likely did not come from planning, but from the unexpected, from moments of surrender, from accepting that you could no longer force things, and then the right person appeared. The decision clarified, the path revealed, and that was no accident. It was clarity emerging from silence. In Buddhism, surrender is not passivity. It is active trust, trust in impermanence, trust in the wisdom of now, trust that life is not meant to be conquered but aligned with. Even the Buddha taught that attachment is suffering, and letting go is not failure. It is liberation. It is the doorway to peace. So ask yourself today what you are still fighting that no longer serves you. Perhaps a version of yourself you have outgrown, an outcome you are clinging to, or an identity born from fear, because surrender may be the bridge to your next level. The moment you stop demanding that life be different and begin living it as it is. And that is where real magic happens. Release the outcome. Anchor in action. Do your part and free the rest. This is not laziness. It is alignment. Not apathy, but inner peace. And when you finally stop fighting, everything begins to arrange itself naturally. Number 9. Embrace the absence of ground. There is a quiet fear many never name, the fear of having no solid ground, of that in-between space where nothing feels certain, where identities dissolve and plans collapse, yet it is precisely there that transformation begins. Because just as a tree releases its leaves in autumn, all true growth requires letting go before blooming again. We cling to what is familiar: titles, routines, relationships, definitions of who we think we must be, not because they are true, but because they are known. Certainty becomes a comfort zone, but truth lives in uncertainty. And that is why so many people feel stuck today. Not because they are doing something wrong, but because they are trying to control what cannot be controlled, waiting for life to become predictable before moving forward. Deeper wisdom says something else. The lack of ground is not the problem. It is the portal, because the cocoon does not promise the caterpillar a butterfly. It only asks it to dissolve. And in the same way, your next evolution does not need your certainty. It needs your surrender. Can you trust yourself even when the ground shifts beneath your feet? Think of the most decisive moments of your life. Were they planned? Or did they emerge from chaos? From moments when everything seemed to be falling apart. Sometimes falling apart is actually beginning to come together, but only when you stop resisting. Sit with the unknown. Allow it to unsettle you, to stretch you, open you. Strip away layers that were never truly yours. Do not fill the silence with rushed answers. Let the silence speak, because we were taught to fear not knowing. Yet, in Buddhist practice, The absence of ground is sacred. It is the space where the ego dissolves and truth emerges, where attachments loosen and being remembers its depth. When you no longer need everything to make sense, you become powerful, because you stop negotiating with life and begin meeting it directly, without guarantees or scripts, guided only by presence. Try this. The next time life feels unstable, pause and breathe. Tell yourself that this too is part of the path. You are not lost. You are being remade. Stop asking for the map and become the explorer. Allow life to shake you and observe what remains standing. Often it will not be what you expected, but it will be what is true. And what is true never abandons you. Ask yourself whether you are clinging to certainty or evolving through chaos. Whether you trust life's unfolding or keep trying to rewrite what already is. Because growth is not about holding everything together. It is about learning to come apart with grace. Let the leaves fall. Let the old identity dissolve. Allow yourself to be bare. Because only in that openness can something new take root. And when you stop chasing solid ground beneath your feet, you realize that you are the ground. You are the stillness in the middle of the storm. So do not fear the unknown, embrace it. Your next chapter lives there. Your freedom begins there. And when you finally release the need for the ground to remain unmoving, everything begins to rise from within. Number 10. Let the moment lead. Imagine a river flowing effortlessly, questioning neither its path nor resisting its bends or obstacles, simply moving forward, responding to the landscape and adapting to every turn. Rise and fall. This is the essence of letting the moment guide you. A profound act of surrender that does not mean giving up on life, but becoming its apprentice. When you cling to control, trying to manage every detail of your career, your emotions, or your identity, you drift away from the only place where peace and purpose truly exist, the present moment, and end up managing life instead of living it. What if you stopped writing the script for every step and began asking what life is asking of you right now? What if instead of rushing forward or retreating out of fear, you paused and allowed the moment to become your guide? There is power in interrupting autopilot, because the mind loves to replay the past or anticipate the future, but rarely lives here. When you notice yourself moving through life like a to-do list or a series of problems to solve, stop, breathe, and ask what life is asking of you now. Because that question shifts your attention from control to curiosity and opens space for unexpected answers, new perspectives, and paths you had not considered. You may be facing delays, disappointments, or detours that feel unfair. But what if those delays were sacred? What if the moments you want to skip contain exactly the lessons or the healing you need? When you surrender to time, not your time but life's timing, you align with a deeper intelligence, and instead of fighting the current, you begin to float with it, trusting that each moment holds wisdom if you are willing to listen. Ask yourself what teaching this moment contains if you stop trying to rush through it. Because when resistance falls away, the moment reveals its gifts, sometimes healing, sometimes simply peace. And peace is the ground from which everything else grows. When you anchor yourself in the present, your purpose becomes clearer, and life stops being something you push and becomes something you accompany. The chaos around you no longer drags you because you are anchored in the now. Living the moment means embracing uncertainty without panic, acting without attachment, and remaining fully present even when life feels overwhelming. This is not passivity, but a deep, conscious commitment to what is, rather than a struggle against what you wish it were. And little by little you see that control was always an illusion and that true mastery lies in flow, not force. When you stop trying to manage every instant and begin to truly inhabit it, everything starts to fall into place. Your work, your identity, your emotional balance find their natural order because you are no longer swimming against the current, but allowing yourself to be carried by it. You become like the river, strong yet flexible, rooted and free at once. And in that flow, you discover the lightness of a life lived in harmony with the present moment, where peace and purpose coexist, and where, as you finally let go, everything aligns. Lesson 11. Release the need to fix everything, because trying to solve everything at once is like trying to repair the ocean with a small spoon, exhausting, impossible, and deeply draining. So often we carry that invisible weight, believing it is our responsibility to mend every crack in relationships, at work, or even within ourselves. But there is a truth that sets you free. Not everything that is broken needs your hands. Letting go means abandoning the illusion that you must save others or control situations beyond your reach. And that is not giving up. It is wisely discerning what belongs to you and what belongs to another's process. Imagine how much peace would arise if you recognized where your responsibility ends and another's growth begins. Pause before reacting. Breathe deeply and choose presence over pressure. That small space between impulse and action allows clarity to emerge. Gently ask yourself whether this is something you are meant to fix or something the other must walk through to grow. Because growth is often uncomfortable, sometimes chaotic, yet necessary for transformation. And when you try to rescue everyone or direct every outcome, you unknowingly slow both their evolution and your own, sometimes, your conscious silence. Your ability to hold without intervening has more power than any imposed solution. Notice whether the emotional exhaustion you feel comes from carrying more than is yours, from believing you must hold everything together for others. Soften every transition and prevent every shake. Ask yourself whether the peace you seek is being blocked by that need to fix everything. Because letting go of control is not weakness but strength, the strength of trusting that life knows how to flow and that each person has their own path. There is a deep freedom in stepping out of the role of fixer, because your energy returns to your own healing, your clarity, and your purpose. You become a compassionate witness rather than an exhausted problem solver. And that shift opens a serene inner space where you no longer feel responsible for carrying the weight of the world. The moment you accept that you cannot fix everything, transformation begins. You understand that processes ripen in their own time and that sometimes the greatest support is simply being present without interference. Like a tree standing firm in the storm. Strong, not because it controls the wind, but because it does not resist it. Ask yourself which process you are blocking by trying to hold everything together, and whether your trust, your silence, and your ability to let go are exactly what is needed now for you and for those around you. Because when you finally release the need to fix everything, the currents of life shift and you enter a flow where things begin to arrange themselves on their own and the exhausted spoon can finally rest. Additional lesson: the art of doing less and being more. Imagine a lotus flower blooming not through desperate effort, but by surrendering to the stillness of the water that supports it. That is the art of doing less and being more. In a world obsessed with speed, achievement, and constant motion, we forget that simply being is already enough. And when you release the need to prove your worth through constant doing, you allow your true being to emerge naturally. Authentic growth does not come from forcing. It begins with a serene surrender to the present moment. Try dedicating a few minutes each day to silence, without plans or distractions, letting mental noise settle like dust in still water. Notice how the body relaxes, the breath slows, and your inner system calms. This is not laziness or escape. It is an essential practice of returning to yourself. Because when you stop doing all the time, you finally begin to be. And from that state, the right actions arise effortlessly. Ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped pushing and trusted who you already are? If the constant race to prove your worth were nothing more than an old story you no longer need to live by. Because in silence, there is nothing to fix and nothing to perform. No pressure to uphold and no expectations to carry. And silence reveals a profound truth. You are already enough. Who are you when there is nothing to do? That question opens the door to true freedom. And when you are no longer driven by the need to achieve or control, you begin to sense the peace that has always existed beneath the noise. You realize that your value does not come from what you do, but from what you are. And that understanding changes everything from the way you see yourself to the way you relate to the world. The habit of constant doing begins to dissolve. Presence becomes your strongest state. And in that stillness, life starts to move in unexpected ways. Paths open, ideas flow, and answers appear not because you chase them, but because you made space for them to arrive. Doing less is not stepping away from life. It is entering more deeply into it. Trusting the natural unfolding of things. Becoming the calm center in the midst of chaos. Creating from peace rather than pressure. So ask yourself what you are still trying to prove that silence has already confirmed.